think you're on.
I'm just going to give it a second so that we can make sure we're good. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We are so excited to be in conversation with you today. As you join, as we get started in the first few minutes here, I'm just going to give it. We would love for you to share in the comments, in the chat, who you are and where you are. We would love for this to be a conversation. We'll be monitoring the chat as we go. So it would be awesome if you would be willing to just share a little bit about yourself in that box, and we'll wait for just a few seconds here as folks start to join us. All right. Let's give it just one more minute. And my name is Savannah Sullivan. My pronouns are she and her. I serve as the Director for Young Adult Ministries at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America National Office. And I am so excited to be with you for this conversation today. We are here tonight to intro the second go-round of the ELCA's Young Adult-led No Plastics for Lent initiative. And so tonight we'll talk just a little bit about what you can expect over this Lenten season, and I get the privilege of introing the amazing host for this series, and I'll do that and I'll let her do that in just a moment. But I just wanted to say a little bit of background that this initiative was founded last year by ELCA young people in conversation with Lutheran youth from around the world through the Lutheran World Federation. Last year, this initiative was led by tons of amazing young people from around the ELCA. And this year, we have the privilege of hearing from more incredible young adults, both in the ELCA and through ecumenical, interreligious, and global partners. So I'm so excited for the conversations that we'll be able to have, for the ways that we'll be able to learn and grow together. The person who is helping steward these conversations on this journey is Rachel, and I'm joined by her now. Rachel, would you introduce yourself, please?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Savannah. I'm excited to be joining this ministry this year and helping facilitate our conversations every week. My name is Rachel, and I use pronouns like she or they. I'm calling from Massachusetts right now. And I'm excited to be a part of this because I really care and work on environmental justice, and my faith has been a really big part of that. I served as an ELCA Young Adult and Global Mission in Cambodia, where I learned from farmers who were really on the front lines of the climate crisis. And then this past year, I had a chance to join Ecumenical Community as a Faithful Climate Action Fellow. So I'm really excited to help us hold space for these conversations and to take action together over the next few weeks. Savannah,
Awesome.
I would love to hear more about what is No Plastics for Lent and how does the theology of this program play into it?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you. And I think that's a really important question. So we journey together as people of faith, as Lutheran people together over this season of Lent, which is a season of spiritual reflection and preparing for Holy Week and Easter. It's the 40 days before Easter. And during this time, we get to recall Jesus' 40-day walk in the wilderness after his baptism. And I love that Lent invites us to intentionality, to journey with Jesus into the wilderness, because we know that Jesus did some wrestling in the wilderness. And I think Lent invites us to wrestle too. And I think I didn't really understand that a lot when I was growing up, but the invitation of this initiative, and I think of the season of Lent, is to look at what in our own lives is keeping us from community, from justice, from fully experiencing the presence and the love and the grace of God, and maybe to give some of those things up, to practice giving some of those things up, and to make room for spiritual practices that are freeing in other ways. And so that's what this is. This series is called No Plastics for Lent, but giving up single-use or non-essential plastics for Lent is just one idea of a fast that might help us reflect on our consumption and realign our relationship to the earth. So on the No Plastics pledge form, which will be dropped in the chat, we already have tons of other amazing ideas for what this spiritual practice this season could look like. People have said that they will be having conversations about eco-justice with someone new every week, or they'll be praying the rosary every week and having one of their prayers be meditating on a verse about creation. Or they've said that they're going to spend a certain amount of time outside meditating each day. We have individuals, groups of friends, families, whole congregations making these commitments together. And we just want to make it really clear that Lent is about kind of this spiritual discipline that frees us for action in our whole lives, and that no plastics is just one example of a spiritual practice that one might adopt during this season, but it's not the only example. And I think, Rachel, you said that you have an example of participating in this series last year, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that example.
Yeah, last year I decided to pledge to begin composting. And I loved this practice over the course of Lent because it did reshape my relationship to my food, my environment. But what really stood out to me most is that it reshaped my relationship to my community. It feels like a long time ago, but last Lent was the beginning of the pandemic. And so many weeks, my only trip out of the house was to the Saturday morning farmers market where I dropped off my compost. And so this practice ended up putting me in community with my neighbors in new ways, in ways that helped us build power for mutual aid in the pandemic and to participate in the BLM uprisings of the summer. So I'm excited not just for our individual spiritual practices, but how it can compel us in ways that we might not even know now toward each other and toward action.
I love that. Yeah. And I think, like I said, growing up for a long time, I was only thinking about like giving up soda for Lent or something. But a young adult pastor friend of mine said in a sermon last year, yeah, the last one I listened to in person before the pandemic, that Lent is not a baptism of our self-improvement goals. And that really hit home. This is really a season in which we can engage whatever spiritual practices are meaningful and accessible to us, that challenge us, to help us, I think, realign our whole relationship to our neighbors, to God, our relationship to ourselves and to the earth. And I think this 40 days gives us good practice so that we can put that into action, just like you said, over the rest of the year and over the course of our lives. Because right, we know the problems that we faced in relationship to the earth, like deforestation or climate change or environmental racism, those won't be solved by not using plastic bags for 40 days at the grocery store, or like solely by meditating outside or whatever. But we believe that the intentionality of the season can help us realize a healthier relationship with all creation individually. And then, like you said, can move us, I think, towards each other, and can move our whole communities towards collective action that does have a huge impact. And so that's what this season is about. And we're really, really excited to invite all of you to be a part of it. If you've already thought of what kind of spiritual practice you might engage in these 40 days, drop it in the chat. It's great to give each other ideas of a lot of different activities or spiritual practices that we might be able to do together, hold each other accountable to, and journey with each other in. So part of the reason hopefully you came here is to hear like how we're going to do this from a young adult ministries perspective over the course of Lent. And so I just want to say a little bit about what you can expect each week so that you keep showing up, because this is really about community. It's about joining together. We're going to have some conversations, but we want this whole community to be a part of this movement. And so how are we going to do that? We'll have weekly videos with live interviews of awesome young adult leaders who will talk about life and faith, eco-justice, intersectional issues, and tips for living sustainably individually and in community, like we've been talking about. We'll also have a weekly blog that accompanies each interview, and usually those will be written by the interviewee, with discussion questions. And those discussion questions that'll be included in the blog can be used for personal reflection, like journaling maybe, or for small group reflection as well. And then lastly, third thing is we do have, like I said, a pledge form. It's also kind of like / a sign up form. So you can both share your Lenten practice around eco-justice. Like I said, it's great to give each other ideas. And you can sign up to get these resources emailed directly to you, and get a reminder before we go live each Sunday evening at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Rachel, you're going to be heading up a lot of these conversations. You're going to be doing a lot of this interviewing. Can you just give us like a little bit of a preview about what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to see you all on Sunday nights. We're going to be joined by so many young adults who have such wisdom and leadership to share in the spaces of their faith and environmental justice. They'll be sharing a bit about their spiritual practices so that, as Savannah said, we can share ideas and encourage each other in this season. We'll also be talking about systemic issues, racial justice, Indigenous rights, disability justice, activism on college campuses, and activism in other countries that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. So I'm excited to really look at these intersections and to deepen our connection to justice as we do this work together. And the important thing is that we have a stake in these issues as people of faith. We are called by the gospel to care and to act. And so we're going to practice together. So again, it's on the ELCA Young Adults Facebook page on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time for each conversation, and to check in about how our pledges are going and what the season is like for us.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thanks for being here. I know this has just been kind of a brief intro chat, but if you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat. We are happy to answer and get to as many of those as possible. And be sure to join us here, same place, different time, Sunday night at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And this first week, Rachel is going to be having a conversation with ELCA World Hunger Advocacy Fellow Taina about the intersection of eco-justice and theology and racial equity. And I'm really, really excited to learn with and from Taina and to keep learning with and from you this season, Rachel. Thanks so much. We are so glad that you've all been able to join us tonight. However you participate in this Lenten program, or however you accompany us and we accompany one another in this Lenten journey, we are really, really glad you're here. So thanks so much. We will catch you on Sunday.